Yo, what is going on? It is the Crazy Writer right here, right now, back with chapter 31 of my Invader Zim fanfiction. Chapter 31. Gotcha? Wait. The purple door closed behind us, and Zim held the heart of our enemy with one of the clawed hands from his pack. Gaz and Dib had gone home, and Gur was somewhere else in the base. Zim quickly cast off his wig and lenses and turned to me. It was time for Zim and I to talk about what happened tonight. Liz, Zim said in a hoarse voice. Why? I sat on the ground with my back to the door, and Zim held the heart up with his mechanical hand. I had to, Zim, I told him. I knew you were dangerous, but I didn't realize you were capable of something like this. Zim stared at the pink organ. Our plan was to stop her, and I expected us to destroy her, but this? Why? I just had to, Zim, I repeated. You not understand. How could I possibly not understand? Zim asked with his magenta eyes staring down at me with so many emotions flashing over them at once. I am Zim, after all. I know you, Zim, I said. So explain this to me, Zim demanded. What drove you to this of all things? How I say this, I said out loud to myself as I tried to think of the right words to express what I needed to. You keep calling Tak Love Pig. Yes, Zim nodded. I realize I was wrong for that, but that is no reason to rip her Tranor about. And I didn't realize that upset you so much. What do you care who I call Love Pig? Because, was all I could say as I avoided the eyes of my companion. Because why? Zim demanded. Just because, I said with less hesitation. Because why exactly? Zim shouted. I command you to tell me the meaning of this, wolf child. I finally met his eyes again and took a deep breath before, because if anybody be your love pig should be... I stopped myself. Should be what, Liz? Zim demanded me to finish. Should be me, I shouted. I should be your love pig. You not get it, Zim? I want be your mate. Me. All those emotions that were in Zim's eyes a moment ago suddenly drained. Now those eyes seemingly held nothing but the attempt to process my words. He was silent, more silent than I had ever known him to be. When he didn't speak for a good while, I went on. I want to be your mate, Zim. Not just experiment or learning about affection, but I want to be a real mate. Zim continued to stare blankly and silently. I realized this was a mistake, and I shook my head and sighed. Never mind. It's stupid. I'm stupid. I see you tomorrow, Zim. I turned and began heading for the door. Liz. Zim's voice stopped me, but I didn't look back at him. Me and my superior species don't know a whole lot about love and affection anymore. It's rare for Urkins to fall in so-called love. It would be almost impossible for one of us to even identify when ourselves or another is feeling this love. However, when I saw Tax Robot electrocute you, and you laid there in pain, it wasn't the first time I felt this, but I realized I was afraid to lose you. I realized I wanted to protect you at all costs. Perhaps you know better than I do, but do you suppose that could possibly mean that I love you? I looked back at him when he finished, but I didn't say a word. We stared at each other for a good long while. Without saying anything, we both knew the answer to his question. I slowly rose to 2 feet and dragged myself closer to my Zim. Neither one of us hesitated or resisted as I held his face in both my hands. I slowly pulled his face closer to mine and pulled my own closer to his. Then our lips met, right in the middle of everything. My eyes were still slightly open, while Zim's were wide. His antennas were as erect as a porcupine's quills. I could tell he didn't fully understand what this was, or what to do here. Eventually, we relaxed, and we became naturals in our action. Dib's point of view. For as long as I can remember her being in my life, I've always imagined Liz at my side. I know she's a bit delusional about her identity, but I'm not exactly labeled as Mr. Sanity over here. I just can't imagine my life without her anymore. She was right this morning. She does care about what I have to say. For years, she's been the only person or creature in my life that has any interest in what I say. My favorite days and best memories of anything were when the two of us went on paranormal adventures together. I sort of thought the two of us would be doing that forever. Of course, being a young boy with a decent-looking female who listens to every word you say as your best friend, it didn't take long for me to imagine us as more than just partners in paranormal investigation. It only took me about a year of having Liz in my life before I started imagining her as that special someone. For the first year, I didn't even know or understand what these feelings were exactly. I was only 9 after all and never got to see what love or marriage was supposed to look like. Gaz and I don't know anything about our mother, and Dad won't tell us anything. With the way he avoids the subject, you'd think we were grown in a lab or something. Anyway, at about 10 years old, or last year, I figured out what these feelings were. Only this time it was a matter of getting over my own nerves to tell Liz my feelings for her, and wondering if she liked me back or not. And then this year, I finally worked up the courage to do something about it. So one day, I wrote out a note, telling Liz exactly how I felt about her, and asking her to be my she-wolf mate. I was so excited and nervous about what she would say. I was going to give it to her on the very day that Zim arrived to our class. He was the reason I had to not go through with it. Since that day, I've been keeping the note in the pocket of my coat, hoping that I could one day give it to the girl of my dreams. With Zim in our lives, I couldn't help but to think that the worst was happening between them. I hated Zim for being an evil alien, but as I saw Liz grow closer to him, I hated him more and more. The way she defended him, the way she used to defend me. Sometimes she would even fight against me in his defense. Even in that alternate dimension where they were trying to get my normal-sized head, there was a version of her there. I encountered her after the Halloweenies took Zim away. I'm sure glad Zim or anyone else didn't see that version of her. It's kind of embarrassing since it was supposedly in my head, and she looked like this really fetching girl-wolf hybrid that was basically trying to seduce me into handing over my head. I want to be absolutely clear. I am not, nor have I ever been, a furry. I like Liz despite her animal-like qualities, not because of them. When Zim put me in that horribly amazing simulator, the fact that he made Liz my wife in there made my heart break even more when I realized it was all fake. I had the life I'd always dreamed of in there. I was investigating the paranormal with the girl I loved the most as my wife. And we even have children together. 9 beautiful children. But it was all fake. She was still on Zim's side, and I had to accept that she wasn't mine. Then Tack came along, and I grew hope once again. A girl who was smart and listened to what I'd say, and she didn't even think she was a wolf. I thought I could live without Liz if I maybe had Tack, until I realized she belonged to that same enemy species as Zim. Now my attention returned to that of Liz. How could I ever think I could replace Liz? There's no such thing as a girl more amazing than Liz, even with what she did to Tack. Tonight, though, I sat across the street from the house of my greatest nemesis, with a pair of binoculars held up to my eyes. I watched through the window at the very thing that had become my greatest nightmare. Liz and Zim had fallen for each other, as I had feared would happen. I put my hand to my chest and felt my heart break under my ribs. I removed the binoculars from my face as I sat in the dark bush. The rest of the block was dark and silent. It was after midnight after all, and Zim's house was the only one lit as brightly as it was. I couldn't even hear or see the light of the television from Liz's foster home. I sat in the quiet dark for a few minutes before pulling the single piece of paper from my pocket. I unfolded the paper and quietly read the words to myself one last time. My dearest Liz, I don't really know how you're gonna take this, but I just wanted to say that you mean the world to me. You can't possibly imagine how I feel about you. I guess I should try and tell you how I feel, so I wrote this note for you. Here it goes. Liz, you are nothing less than the greatest friend I've ever known. We've been through a lot together. Some things were amazing, and some were not as amazing. But the thing is, I wouldn't change any of it, because I got to spend all that time with you. You are probably the single most important person in the universe to me. You stay by my side even though you don't have to. Dad and Gaz put up with me because they have to, but you chose to stay by me, despite all my quirks. I also see your quirks as beautiful and wouldn't change a single one of them. What I really want to tell you, Liz, is that I really like you. I've liked you for a long time now, and if you find that you like me too, I ask that you be my one and only she-wolf. I want you, Liz, to be the mate of me, Dib Membrane. Love, Dib. P.S. Please say yes. I sighed and closed my tear-filled eyes as I tore the note into a dozen pieces and left them to fall to the ground. I looked up at the greenhouse once more before turning and making my way home, leaving a trail of tears in my wake. Well then. Okay. But seriously, how obvious was the Dib thing for you guys? Like, was it a total shock for you that you did not see coming? Or did you kind of suspect it? Or was it super obvious to you before this chapter? Because I know I dropped a few hints about it throughout the story, but I don't know just how obvious I made it for you, and I haven't really gotten feedback for this particular part of the story yet as of uploading this. But, like, I've had this chapter planned from the beginning. Like, when I was first conceptualizing the story in my head, I had this scene in this chapter going pretty darn close to how it ended up going. So yeah, I had this chapter in my mind the entire time I was writing the story up until this point. So I know I threw in a few little foreshadows and hints. I just don't know how received they'd be for the audience. So if y'all could do me a little favor and let me know just how received you had this happen here, that would be super helpful, and I just love to get your feedback. Then, other than that, I will see you little darlings next time, and remember, keep your crazy.